Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you again for coming to my second coffee with the mayor. Appreciate it. One thing that I mentioned last time at the very end of the meeting, I like the idea of being able to record these meetings because then we can put these on YouTube later. So people who could not come can listen to the feedback from the community and from what we have to say. So I just want to let you know that we are recording this meeting. And we are rolling now, I believe, right? So, couple things before I get started, just so you know, some of you might be looking around the room and wondering what so many council members are doing here. And I'm so glad and I love the support. Thank you very much. But as most of you know, a quorum is four, and that this is a public meeting, and that we cannot have four here. So we drew straws. And when you see Tom Klein leave, it doesn't mean he's mad at anybody or he's in trouble. That he drew the short straw, and so he decided not to be here today. Appreciate it, Tom.
I'm your Saturday night at the bunch, so I'll
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
ask questions.
Thank you. Yeah, great. Thank you. So as we get started, some of you may have seen the spotlight that I wrote, and the idea of the meeting this Saturday is I wanted to touch on more about the idea of what's going on in our strategic planning for the next 2 years. Right. So before I get too deep into that, I want to do something that I regretfully forgot to do last time, and that is introduce this guy right here, City Manager Jimmy Forbes. Appreciate your being here, supporting. Assistant to the City Managers is Bryce Atkins. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. And as I said before, there's a couple of council members here, so I really appreciate you guys being here. So, and one more thing before I get into the topic of the day, I want to remind everybody, some of you noticed, and some of the news coming out of the City of Gilroy is that we do have a master plan. We started the conversation about a master plan for the Civic Center. So in case you don't know what that is, the Civic Center is all of the property that's on this site here that goes from the senior center across the street, the police station here to Wheeler Auditorium, to the utility center, and to the parking lot across the street. And last council set aside money to start a study session to figure out what's the best use of this property and what is this community interested in, what type of resources that we want to put towards the idea of redeveloping a civic center. And what that would include most likely is a community, possibly a community and rec center. That's what this community has been asking for quite some time. So some small conversations that have been going on about that, or where would we put a community center, rec center here on this property? And the other thing is that this facility, City Hall, was built when?
The last major remodel was 1980.
1980, but it was built in 70s, early 70s,
70s, 60s,
yeah.
I think.
So there's some challenges that come along with building this old. You know, just like our homes, you can go and repair, and sometimes you have to put new. And putting like new technology in this building sometimes costs more than rebuilding sometimes. So those are the things that the conversations that will be going on this workshop. So just as a reminder, this workshop, there are 3 of them. There's 2 each day. You know, on Tuesday, March 4th, which is coming up. There's one at 9 a.m., one at 6 p.m. at Wheeler Auditorium, I believe. That's the first one. The second one, is that the same place? I'm sorry. Right? Yeah, okay. So then the second one is on April 8th, so it's in about another month. Same 9 a.m., 6 p.m. And then the third one is on May 20th, 9 a.m., 6 p.m. There's 2 sessions every time that there's a workshop. There's childcare, there's Spanish language services, there's snacks, right? So please come out, listen, and give your input on how you envision this property and what you want from your city. So there's flyers in the back if you're interested in more information. And of course, you can go to the city website with all kinds of information. So in regards to today's topic, so last month we I talked about strategic planning and what strategic planning is. That's when the council and the public comes together and we talk about the goals of this community. And usually that entails about the next 2 to 5 years, right? So the budget cycle in this city works on a 2-year cycle. So right now we're coming upon the end of the, help me with the dates, 24-25 budget cycle, which ends in June, on June 30th, excuse me. And so what we are working on right now, this council and this community is starting to come up, what are the priorities and what are the costs associated with those priorities? So that's sort of what we talked about last time. And then since then, we did have a strategic plan session. Some of you were at that strategic plan session right here. And I felt like it went very, very, very well. It was very productive and a lot of ideas that got thrown out. And it was collaborative amongst council and it was collaborative amongst the community. So we had that meeting and the next steps will be an additional 3 to 5 public meetings. So now that we can narrow down and talk more strategically and specifically about some of the ideas that we came up with in that meeting. And some of the ideas that we came up with in that meeting are economic development, better ways to deal with the unhoused and housing solutions. For lack of a better term, law and order, right? That got brought up and I don't mean law and order just about, chasing down, burglars and robbers, which that's very important as well, but law and order when it comes to code enforcement and things like that around this town, traffic safety. Some of the things that got talked about here last month was people want to feel more safe when they're walking and biking around town, right? So those are the things that we will talk more about each time we have a new meeting, so we can narrow down, be more specific. And then as we're working towards a deadline of June 2nd, this council hopefully will convene on June 2nd and we will come up with an agreement on the ideas that we've been talking about with feedback from the community, feedback from staff. And hopefully on June 2nd, we'll all agree that to vote for a budget, and then staff gets to start working on some of these new ideas, new policies and procedures that we'll be enacting over the next few months. So with that being said, what did I miss in all of that?
You got it all.
You sure?
You did great. It's a lot to get.
Okay. That said, this meeting is not completely limited to just the strategic plan process. So, just like last month, I'll open the floor to questions regarding the topic of the day or other things regarding Gilroy. Yes.
But in terms of paper,
Yeah.
does the city foresee any changes given everything that's going on? Things foresee more changes in, what the money?
Sure.
You want me to take that one?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
No, I think the majority of our revenues are locally generated. We pay for services with sales tax, property tax, hotel tax. Some of the big projects like highways, things like that, we get federal funding from, but it won't impact how we do our day-to-day business. Most of our revenues are kind of locally generated. So I don't think it'll be a big issue in that sense.
Yeah, correct.
Not to divert from the other topic, but since the council recently, in the most recent meeting, voted on district elections, maybe you could explain that in the process.
Sure. Great point. So just in case you didn't hear in the back, she brought up the idea that in this last council this last week that we voted, the council voted unanimously to move from an at-large election to a district-based election, right? So I know some of you are very familiar with that, but some of you who are not, I'll give a little bit of background on that. So in the state of California, there is a law that's been on the books for many, many years that the law says that councils and municipal councils need to be broken up into districts. And that just had not come to Gilroy yet. If you look around in other cities around you and other agencies around us, most of them are already in districts. So think for a second the water district, we have representation down here in South County. They're broken up into districts, right? The county supervisors, we have representation that includes South San Jose, Morgan Hill, San Martin, Gilroy. It's in districts, Gavilan districts, Gilroy Unified districts. Most agencies and council bodies are broken up into districts. So Gilroy voted to go in that direction of districting. So that means that a very public process will start immediately. On Monday's council meeting, it's already back on the schedule in the public forum that we'll be discussing some of the detail and some of how the public can play a role in moving from at-large elections to districting. So some of you experts, how did I do on that? What details did I miss? Go ahead.
The only thing I would.
Yeah, thank you.
The only thing I would, that you did everything, you said everything correctly.
Okay.
But that we are also working on a robust plan for civic engagement for each of these districts. So you won't have to necessarily rely on whoever is in that district to always be able to give you information how to find them out. There'll be a baseline for everybody, so that way everybody feels included. Everybody knows who their district reps are and how to get in touch with them. And at the same time, it's an opportunity for the city to be able to do civic engagement on things like the civic center workshop or any other process that they want you to get involved in. We're trying to do that citywide for every council district.
Thank you.
So can you give me an example of how the previous process and the new process differ? So with the previous process, something was going on.
Yeah.
This happened, but now with the new process, this is what happened. So I don't understand what you're saying.
Do you mean how people will run for a council spot?
I don't know what I'm asking.
Oh,
I don't understand.
I'll take a
I
shot.
think he's asking more why.
Yeah.
Why we change it. That would you,
I'm just trying
I
to get
think it's
an
complicated, is that repetitive? How
Yeah.
there's gonna be a new system to know who your representatives are. I think that's what he's trying to understand.
Okay, and how does that differ from today?
Yeah, cause like now I think you obviously know who your council is, but if you don't, you can go on the website that has all their names, their
Yeah.
phone number, their email. And he was saying how there's gonna be more. So like, what's the more?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, thank
First of all, none of us here are experts on this and we're learning as we're going along. So previously, when you voted for council members every 2 years, there were 3 seats up because we have 7 total. We have the mayor and then we have 6 council members. They're split up. So every year you're either voting for 3 council members and a mayor or just 3 council members every 2 years. So this recent election, 2024, we had 3 council members and the mayor spot open and we ended up, switching out 3 of the 4. Okay. That was decided by the entire city. So whether you lived on the east side, the west side, the north side, the south side, everybody threw all their votes into a pot. And whoever came up with number 1 votes, number 2, number 3, have a seat over there. And for mayor, whoever came up with number 1 had a seat up there as the mayor at large elections. Now what's going to happen starting in 2026, you're going to be voting for certain areas of town. And that's what the public process is about, is determining what those areas are and what they call communities of interest. And so one of the reasons why the California Voting Rights Act came from, having a general election like that one pot into districts is what they call vote dilution. So if you have a part of town that votes entirely for one candidate, but then the other 80% of town does not vote for that candidate, there's some dilution of those votes just by geography or something like that. So that's as technical I'm going to get. So in 2026, there will be some of the seats open by the districts. So however council decides how they want to split their districts up, I'm giving you a hypothetical what some cities do. There would be 6 districts and be the mayor. The mayor would be voted at large still. Okay, but then the 6 districts would make up certain parts of the town. And that's what those maps are all about. And so in 2026, some of those districts would come up for election. And then in 2028, the rest of those districts would come up for election. By the time you get to 2028, all of your seats will then be filled by certain representatives of certain parts of town. And if anybody's sitting, let's say you just got voted in on say Kelly Ramirez just got voted in 2024, she cannot be up for re-election Districts are what until 2028? She was voted by the people for a 4-year term. She gets to finish out that 4-year term. Same thing with the mayor, same thing with Mr. Hilton, who just got reelected, and who else got reelected? Mr. Fagazzi, who got reelected, or just got elected. So they're set for 4 years, but the other seats most likely will, Mr. Bracco's terming out, Ms. Marks is terming out. So those positions will most likely then switch over to districts at that time.
So there could be some elections where you don't vote. Because your person is, your district is not up and the mayor's
Yeah.
not. And that election, you will not vote at all.
I've never thought about that, but that's true. It's very true. You may have an election.
School board.
Same as the school board, same as the board of supervisors for the county. You may have an election where that just doesn't have any relevance to your water district. But I never thought of it that way.
Let me go to Jen next. She had her hand up. No, not even close.
No, and do you want to know how they're going to be drawn? Just real quick, that they're going to be drawn due to population. So the city of, just to say for pure sakes, the city is 60,000 people. Each district, if you have 6 of them, has to be about 10,000 people, give or take a few percentage points. The other part that's very important to understand is that communities of interest, and you're going to hear that term a lot. And community of interest is a similar group of people, and it's not just based on race. It's based on many factors that tend to vote in a certain way, and you're trying to make sure their vote doesn't get diluted by the rest of the city. So that's how districts get drawn.
Mayor, one thing that I'm hoping that we roll this out in a very intentional and thoughtful way. And through the community employees, I want to make sure that there's intentionality behind providing translation. Like I know there's no translation, but I'm wondering how we can be intentional and ensure that all of our communities are going to feel seen and heard. And that includes offering translation at the case of the meeting.
So we do offer translation for this. It's actually happening right now as you speak, right? And we offer.
The mic's off.
Okay, sorry, it's going now. Sorry. But prior to this meeting,
Is it Google Translate?
online, I don't know.
It's an AI program called Wordly.
Yeah.
Saying that you don't want to wasn't able to access.
Right. So every time that we advertise,
And just intentionality and making sure we roll out the right part to all our community.
Sure.
Sure.
you got it.
Yeah, just for, to this gentleman's question. Next one article in the Mercury this week regarding the last council meeting and why this was done. And when you talk about why might you do it, is they reference that on the east side of town, the majority of their votes went to 2 of the candidates that weren't. So this was their preference over on the east side of town. But neither of them got in. So
That's not correct.
Yeah. It's actually the opposite.
Councilmember Hilton was the top vote getter in the east side and Terrence Fagazzi was the second vote
Yeah,
getter.
just be careful when you're referencing this kind of stuff in the community because it's very technical, it's even technical for those of us that experienced it. Sometimes we have to remember, we're going into closed session at the first meeting just to remember what we can kind of thing, but that's.
But that's the goal of the public process.
Right.
Every single time we do this, right,
Yeah.
none of us are experts at this. It's
I'm
okay.
sorry that the
That's okay.
article wasn't.
It's okay. But your point is well taken and that's what we have to, that's the whole point of moving to districts.
With the new districting method, the representatives that are running for that district must live in that district.
Of course, 100%. Yeah. He commented, the representatives from that district must live there. Of course they do. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, Richard,
So what happens, okay, so Morgan Hill's already doing a district voting,
they already have you.
okay. So what happens if you have somebody on the north side not running?
Right. Yeah. That's one of the challenges of moving to districts, and that's one of the concerns that a lot of people that don't like moving to districts have, and that is what happens when you have a district where no one runs, right? So it's possible and it happens. Our role, I believe, and our goal as this council and this community is to do really, really, really good at leadership development, right? So we have to make sure that we have a strong bench, for lack of a better term, right? In all organizations, whether it's a sports team or a great company or a great city, they have depth in their leadership. And now that role falls on us leaders now, we have to promote leadership development. And that's the way that we're going to get around that, Rachel. There's no guarantees, right? There's not, but that's the way that we have to get around that. Right now, I'm optimistic, considering the turnout that we had for all of our committees and commissions, right? They're full, first time they've been full in many years. And those aren't the only folks that will be capable or ready to run for council one day. There's all kinds of boards and volunteer groups around this community. We need to develop those folks so that they want to run in their district. So there's competition in every district. But it's a real concern.
Can you tell the people, what happens if we don't go to districts?
Sure. So I'm going to try to start that. Thank you. I'm going to try to start this. So he said, tell you guys what happens if we don't go to districts. So why are we moving to districts? We've talked about a little bit the reasons why, but there are some consequences if we don't, right? So we've been contacted by an attorney who does this throughout the state of California. This is this attorney's business model, really, is that he goes around and makes sure that cities are complying with the state law. This is not this attorney's law. He's not making this up. This is the state law. It's been around a long time. He's just figured out a way to turn it into a model of going around and getting cities to comply. So if we don't comply, then we would immediately enter a lawsuit.
Yeah, we'll get sued.
Yeah, we'll get sued. We'll get sued.
Big time.
Big time. And of all of the cities in the state of California that have decided to fight this, how many have won? Zero.
No one's.
So nobody's won.
Nobody.
And some cities have spent millions and millions and millions of dollars fighting and losing. And that's something that our council is not interested in risking, especially in a community we're not flush with funds, and those monies come from the general fund. Yeah.
I just have a question. Is there any protections that'll be on a district? Say that either nobody runs or the person who runs is getting any support and they're not elected. What happens?
What was the second? The person who runs and what?
They're not supported. Say the person who runs their district doesn't want them.
Yeah.
So everybody just, doesn't vote for them.
Yeah.
Or they get 100 votes.
Yeah.
Is there any protection for the district? Because that's not right to the people that now, because they went through this, now they don't have representation.
Great questions. She asked, are there protections or what do we do in a district? Number one, if no one runs, and number two, if someone runs, most of us would consider completely unqualified.
What?
But they only need a few votes if it's only one person running, right?
If there's one person running to submit it, there is no, they get appointed.
Oh,
Yeah.
So the people have no voice whatsoever.
No, they need to run another.
You have to run another person.
You would have to look like.
No, but what I'm saying is, well, you're saying that the reason this is happening is because you have one side is voting more than the other. So like, let's take like the west side to the east side. The west side's more participating than the east side. So that's the argument that's going on with it. So if that's the issue and nobody in a district wants to run because in that district, they were one of those parties that doesn't really participate, now they completely lose a voice?
If nobody at all runs, I believe we appoint.
From the district.
If nobody ran at all, if it was completely empty, the council appoints from that district. But again, nobody ran, so then how do we appoint a good person? This is the challenge. This is the challenge with going into districts. It's a challenge,
Yeah.
right? It's a challenge.
It is a hypothetical.
But
we can't always have-
that's why it's important to do leadership development. That's the way you get around it. Yeah.
And these uncontested positions is one of the biggest problems that we're having all over the United States.
Yeah.
with different elections.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a challenge.
So it seems like to me that you have a major issue to vote on. You're kind of waiting based upon what group of districts may elect people that covers that particular issue that's being voted on. So in other words, you want to do A, so you're sending these people in this district that think this way. Then you get all these in the other district, they get elected and the vote, and they have enough to, like, where the vote turns out. This doesn't seem very democratic to me, actually. I mean, it seems
I
like,
don't-
I don't get it.
Yeah,
I do get it.
it's happening everywhere. Yes, Tom.
It doesn't make it right.
This is representative, couple.
It's right.
And that's what the whole United States is based on, representative. You represent a representative for House, Senate, whatever. It works the same way in the city, you have a representative. And that's how this government and this country seem to work. But you may not like it. I can tell you right now, it's our government. But it doesn't change.
Why are you directing that to me?
You're suggesting that, you're saying that as the House and the Senate. That.
Yeah, you have your representative. You will have a representative.
Can we talk about something else?
Yeah, we'll move on.
Now
We'll
it's
move
getting
on.
antagonistic.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't, yeah, it's okay.
Every 2 years. they get-
Let's go back over here, you guys. I have one question, Rebecca.
That was brought up at council meeting, a positive thing about district elections is the cost of running. A lot of candidates can't afford to run because the district is small, you have to reach a lot of people. But if you're talking about a smaller amount of people, voters, it costs less for you individually,
Yeah.
wherever you're
Well,
getting your money.
But look, tough topic, right? This is why there's gonna be public meetings about it. Please come out, learn more. And, it's not easy. Change is never easy. And, I think our council and this community and this staff is committed to doing the very, very best we can to make this happen right. Edwin.
Greg, you mentioned it was gonna be on the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Yeah, so the first step is, let's say, for example, Monday night is the public hearing. And so we'll have a demographer who has done the analysis of how people vote, where they live, all these factors that go into creating districts. They're going to give a presentation on the data that they see. Then the public hearing will start where for the first, I believe, 2 meetings, the public will give input onto where they think districts should be or what they think things should be considered. That's the first 2 meetings. Then the last 3 will be a combination of things like that. But eventually the last 3 or 4 meetings will be talking about maps in general. And so we'll have a couple of tools for you on the city website. There'll be a tool where you can actually draw your own map. And you don't want that? Okay, well, then don't do it. But some people think it's kind of fun, actually. Some civics geeks, I guess. But you can draw your own map and you can submit that to the council for consideration, saying, I know this community and I think this is where the district should be drawn. Because that, at the end of the day, is the ultimate decision by the council of where these maps are going to be located and where, how the community is going to be distributed. So every one of those meetings, 5 of them, is your opportunity to come and talk and to even talk individually with your council members about what you feel the map should be done. I would also point you to the city of Los Altos. We are basically copying, because that's what we do here. We copy everything we can to save money and time, and they just went through this entire process. And we are very much modeling what they've done because they modeled somebody else. So if you go to the city of Los Altos website, you're going to see everything they did in the process till they got to the very end. And we're going to do a similar process because 1, it's what typically cities have done, and 2, it's very efficient for us to do. So, but the first step is Monday night, where the demographer and the public hearing.
Great question. Great questions, everybody. And, this is just a reflection of, it's not an easy process. Change is hard. For us on council, we have had the opportunity to talk about this for a while. And, but like you were saying, sometimes it's hard to understand. Like when we started this process, we're getting 150 pages at a time to try to keep up with. So it's complex. So, I am comfortable and confident that we will, do our very, very best to get through it, and then we'll come out good on the other side. So, anybody, Tom? Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you.
A lot of items at the beginning.
Yeah.
Budget.
Yeah.
Street maintenance.
Yeah,
City has a long way to go.
Yeah.
Free money.
and for street maintenance.
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna jump right to Jimmy on that since he knows it better than me. We got facts and figures.
Do what I'm told.
Yeah, yeah.
So thanks, Tom, for bringing that up. Always love to talk about streets. So for the last 3 years, the council has allocated some reserve money, approximately $2 million extra a year into improving our streets. I hope you've seen some of that work. I know I have. And so just last year alone, the city put about $6 million into street improvements. If this council decides to do the same program that we've done in the last 3 years, then we will continue to put about approximately 4 million a year into the streets, and you'll continue to see a lot of the work that's going on. The next phase for us is really the hard phase, because some of you who have seen the worst streets are wondering, why aren't you doing anything with the street? The reason why we're not doing it is it's so far gone that it would cost $4 million to replace the whole street. That's your entire budget for the year, and you don't do any other work. But that's where we're headed now in this phase. So if we get a council direction and commitment to continue funding that program will continue. And I think if there's like 5 things in my time I've been here that I'm most proud of, it's that streets program that has seen so much improvement. And that only happened because the council said, all right, we're going to throw some money at this. We know we got to do it. And it actually has been a really good product.
Rachel,
Question. So who gets the bids for paving, these streets? Because some of these streets, like even my street, it was slow.
Well, it's a competitive bid process. They put in, how much they think it's going to cost for them to do, and the lowest
But
bid.
is anybody, benchmarking or monitoring? the
Yep.
streets? Because the streets are not even,
Well, there's a couple of things.
I'm not, put it down or criticize.
No, just,
I'm just saying, it's kind of softly paving.
some of it is because you have to decide what level of repair you're going to do. And if you have a road that is okay and you repair it, you're not going to get a perfect road. Now, if you tear a road out and you start all over, you're going to get a perfect road. So some of the repairs are basically just eliminating potholes so it's smoother. You will have bumps, you will have imperfections. And I'll give you a good example. Gourmet Alley, we've got some criticism that it's not the smoothest, it's not whatever. Well, if you know what's underneath that, you would understand. And so instead of digging that entire road up, which would cost millions of dollars, we did a repair that we thought was the best we could do. But if you don't start with a brand new road, you're not going to get a brand new road usually in that process. But you can always get a hold of our streets department and tell them that you didn't think the quality, and we have had a few examples. And in fact, we're in a lawsuit right now with one of our previous vendors for poor quality. So we do hold them accountable, but it is a challenge because when they're done. And then you really,
It was good, and then when they came in, it's like.
yeah.
another side, the question is about sidewalk. We just finished another round and we're going to be starting another round.
Yeah, actually, the council last year before, changed the policy on how our sidewalks get repaired. It used to be that the individual homeowner would have to do it themselves. And sometimes, depending on certain circumstances, the city would split the cost depending on funds. Now, the city is going to take the lead on that, and they're going to bundle these projects together. And so I think it'll be more efficient and it'll be cost savings. And then that will still be shared with the property owner, but it will help improve the program. The other thing we did 2 years ago is we did an inventory of the sidewalks. We did GPS. So we have the list of everything. It just at the end of the day comes down to how much money can you put into doing those repairs. Yes, we do have a list. Sure. Would you like to see it?
Yeah, and I can say that.
No, you can't see it.
I know it's continuing. How much more long, will that program continue?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I have to keep relying on you. I don't have all these facts and figures.
Yeah, and I don't have it all, but I have probably enough to answer your question. There are 2 components to that program. One is the Community Development Block Grant. And that is federal money we get for disadvantaged communities. And so that's where you see a lot of that. And the other half is what the city puts in, to doing those things. And so we have a long-term program. It's been funded every year. And as you can see, we're doing some around here, and it keeps going until we're all done. I don't. Yeah. Yeah, but it's continuing. There's no reason to think that it won't.
Back.
Well, we did, like a lot of people, got a scare that federal funding was paused. And so we do get a very small amount. Community development block grants is money that we allocate to some of our nonprofits and also to projects and other activities. But that was unpaused. So we have no reason to believe that that money's not going to be there when we get ready to. I understand what people are feeling, but we have to be a little bit different. We don't panic until we're forced to panic, and we're not panicking. Not saying we're not ready to panic, but we have.
Yes, sir.
So on economic development,
Yeah.
when we talked about this at the last meeting, a lot of what the focus was on, what we can do in kind of the bureaucratic part about, permitting processes closer and everything. But have we looked at the kinds of businesses we really want to target? If you want somebody that's pharmaceutical manufacturing, insurance processors, I don't know. I mean, I'm not suggesting anybody there, but have we kind of zeroed in on, let's find an industry so that, we look at places, Watsonville's over there with all of its, agricultural processing, whatever, you go up.
Yeah, I think I can answer that. One of the topics on our strategic plan, as I said, was economic development, and it seemed like we had a lot of cohesion along that amongst council about that. And we talked about a lot of things that lead to better economic development. Like you just said, it's part of the process, right? Right here in City Hall, can we do that a little bit more efficiently? Right? It's code enforcement. It's quality of life. It's aesthetics in this community. There's a lot of things that go into economic development, including maybe someone, we've talked about that, maybe someone at a higher level that works for the city of Gilroy, that's an economic development director. Those are the people I think that you're talking about that are out identifying potential companies, out tracking them down, pounding the pavement, trying to build relationships to bring companies to Gilroy.
Well, even beyond, targeting particular companies,
Yeah.
I'm thinking if you look at an industry broader, there may be a lot of companies in there. You find something that is how you fit the community that supports a certain kind of business.
Yeah.
Okay. Medical research.
Yeah. I don't believe that unless I'm wrong. I don't believe that we've identified, do we want to build a new specific business sector in Gilroy other than what we already have? I don't believe we have, but there's nothing wrong. We can't talk about that.
No, just
Yeah.
asking.
I love it.
Considering finding that kind of sector
Yeah.
focus, which may make.
Yeah, what kind of I'm hearing a little bit from some folks that are thinking about coming here or are coming here is that they come to get the Gilroy, South County area because they're support businesses for Silicon Valley. So that might be something that you're talking about. It's a sector for a certain sector. Yes.
Well, I heard that by where country is, instead of getting new, this will be up there.
I sure hope so. So he said, is there going to be a new Dutch Brothers, right? Coffee shop? Right. So that's on 10th Street. He's talking about 10th and Alexander. There's an application in for Dutch Brothers Coffee. There's a sign up. Right. So, I sure hope so. Yeah. It's in the process, I believe. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Is Gilroy an economic development director at this point?
A manager.
We have a manager.
Yeah.
You?
Yeah.
No, terrible at that.
Yeah. We have a manager. There's different levels, right? It's not a director level, but maybe that'll change with this new budget. Yes.
Website required a deputy director of community development. Economic development manager, or what role that person be on once they're in that position? I guess what's like the long vision of that position? Will that come up in economic development? And is that where you're seeing this person?
The short answer is no. Community development and economic development are two separate departments. And the deputy director for community development is going to oversee planning, building, and code enforcement, and also the fire marshal. So it's just another position in that department. What the mayor's talking about is a few years ago, the city created really kind of the economic development division. And so, we have departments and we have divisions and things like that. And division is on a smaller scale. And so you don't have a director, and typically to have a director level, you need people that report to you. You're an at-will employee, you're an executive employee, and that position as it's designed is not that. And what the mayor and some other council members have mentioned is this is a priority. And economic development and generate, and I'll give you an example of why it's for some of them, is that you had a sales tax measure that didn't pass. And so you think to yourself, well, how do we generate more revenue for the city? And the thought is that economic development businesses will bring in jobs and taxes and things like that. But if you look at cities that have been successful, they invest a lot of time and money into that. Uruguay does not do that at that level. And if that's what the council wants to do, they have to dedicate positions and resources to do that. So that's kind of the grand idea.
Last year, we stated that our tax revenue generators in the city, the biggest ones are car dealerships. And my question is, how do we get more people like that here and focus on that? And I would love to see council really hone in on that, because that's what we need, even though the tax initiative for public safety didn't pass, we still need money.
Yeah.
So I would like to see us really go after those companies, and we got Amazon coming in, we can get partnership with them. I know they're probably not gonna generate a lot of tax revenue for the city, but just, kind of thinking outside the box, like, who can we target to bring in more money?
Let me take that comment a step further, because one of the things that we're talking about with economic development, it's not, okay, so think about this. We get asked questions like, why isn't Trader Joe's in Gilroy? It's a simple number one answer. They don't think they can make a profit here. It's that simple in attracting businesses. So how do you help remove that barrier for them? In some cities, they attract those businesses by giving tax credits. They give rebates, they waive impact fees, they give them an economic package that incentivizes them to get over that hump. Gilroy does not do that. We just don't, and never have. And so when you look at the auto dealerships, what Morgan Hill had to do to get their auto dealerships were much different than ours. Ours was much more organic. They just came here, on some scale. I don't want to totally minimize it. Morgan Hill's giving tax rebates. They're not making them pay their impact fees. They're giving them loans. They're giving those kinds of things. So that's just having an economic development department, not going to change anything unless you give that person tools to go out there and call Trader Joe's and say, look, we know you don't think you can make a profit, but here's where we can help you. And that's competition. And so that's why we don't have, Trader Joe's or Sprouts or Whole Foods or any of those, because they've done their math. These people are very smart. They know how to make profits, and they haven't figured out how to make it work here. And that's why they need help. Help is incentives.
But what you just said, to an extent, is you're subsidizing the business. In other words, of themselves, they wouldn't come here. So therefore, what do we do to bring them here? But at some point in time, subsidy stops, and the business has to stand on its own.
Right. So I don't like the word subsidy. I like the word investment.
Well,
call it what you call it, but I'll call it, and here's why, because you're right, it doesn't last forever. So let's say Trader Joe says, we're going to spend $4 million on this building. It's going to take us 10 years to recover this, and our sales. It's not going to make any sense. So what they're going to want is they're going to want the city to invest with them. Because we're going to get money, not so much from groceries, but you just follow me here. And so how do they spread that $4 million investment over 10 years or 20 years or with rebates or things like that? They're going to want help on recovering that initial investment. So that way they get into the black much quicker.
Yeah, but that's a fine balance that we have to strike as a council and as a city, is how much investment or subsidy do we want to give out?
Right.
But yeah, it has the same implications, right? And we have to be careful and cautious about that. You want me to check first? Go ahead.
And another question you brought up at the last meeting, the soil, examining the soil where the arena was supposed to be. Do you have any update on that?
No.
So
Let me see if I can handle one of these questions.
You go.
No. Yeah, just in case you didn't hear in the back, he asked about the Sharks ice. And last month, we reported on the fact that we're waiting for some soils tests and soils engineering. No, we don't have those back, but we're 4 weeks closer, right? How's that for a bureaucratic answer? The process is happening, right? Yeah, Jim.
What company is doing that soil analyzing? Maybe we need a response.
No, it's not the company. It's a part of the process.
You know?
Oh.
You don't know.
Well, we know, but I'm not confident that they're gonna do a good job.
How much longer are you gonna allow? Do these sounds, analyzing the soil, it's contaminated or not?
Well, when we hired them, they said 4 to 6 weeks, and now we're about 3 weeks in, so another 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk economic development, I mean, you know, we used about the auto dealerships at Costco. You know, Costco employs a lot of people, the auto dealerships, not so much. I mean, although I know they, because of the price of the cars, you get the sales.
Sure.
But I mean, I would, you know, as a part of the community, I'm really looking to get jobs here as opposed to, I mean.
It's a balancing act, right?
Yeah.
It's a balancing act, right? So what he's talking about is some companies that come to Gilroy produce a lot of sales tax, maybe not so many jobs, or maybe some jobs. And other companies produce a lot of sales tax, but not a lot of jobs. It's a balancing act, right? So you'll notice some of these warehouses that are coming around Gilroy, right? Those are gonna produce jobs, but most likely not a lot of sales tax. So our goal is to do the very best we can to get the best jobs there so that people are making money are gonna spend, if they're living here, they're gonna spend money in Gilroy to create sales tax. It's a balance. It never ends. Yeah, Jack.
So Amazon is putting in 2 facilities, another distribution warehouse and their data center.
I wouldn't say so much the distribution center, that isn't a vision, but that is not really on its way, but the data center is definitely in
Are
process.
any people involved with the data center or is it
No.
a building full of servers?
It's servers, batteries, stuff,
No people.
few.
So short-term gains from construction, right? The active construction gains sales tax and money and things like that. But yeah, not long-term.
But no payroll tax.
Very little,
Not
very
selling the
little.
product here.
It's not empty, but there's not 500 people working there.
But so far, they've proven to be a good neighbor. They do a lot in the
Yeah,
community.
they're
They do, yeah.
heavily.
Great, right. Good point. So what Dion said is that so far they are proving to be a great neighbor and I don't think any of us have any reason to think otherwise. Yeah, in the back. Public bidding process. Yeah. Public bidding. Yeah.
You said on record, so just going by those days.
Yeah, this one in particular is not the lowest bid. It is, there's several steps. This is our first major design build project. That was a charter amendment we did 2 years ago. And it starts with a request for qualifications. So you want to see people who have done this before. You don't want to be their first ice arena. And then that goes through the process and then the bidding occurs. So you have to be pre-qualified in order to bid.
But as Rachel said, and as you mentioned, it's tough. Public bid is tough, right? Because we all with public, we want our city and our tax dollars to be spent wisely. So we do have a system that exists pretty much on routine business. It's low bid. So the challenge is how well do you pre-qualify? That's what you want to know. Can anybody in the world bid on the paving work in Gilroy? Right? Well, pretty much anybody in the state of California with a California's license, contractor's license, that's, in active status, and they don't have a horrible record. They can bid on it. And that's part of the challenge of public bidding. Just is.
For the short time, so is there a plan if that soil comes back highly contaminated? And what additional cost will that come into the short term development?
The additional cost would be a lot. Is there a plan? No. Not yet. Not gonna panic till I have to.
Jack.
So how is it they only recently discovered that they're gonna have to lift that facility up? It seemed to me that would have been something they would have identified at the beginning of the project, not about the point where they were going out for
Yeah.
bids.
So the question is, why are we only learning now that there's some certain soils conditions?
Well, it doesn't have a lot to do with that. It's the fact of the matter is when you design it and you get the actual footprint, that's when you evaluate the impacts and what you need to do it. I don't think this is out of the ordinary. And talking with the Sharks, they ran into this with, well, I don't understand. Are you laughing at me?
No,
Okay.
no.
Trying to give you an honest answer.
It's just that down there is well-known floodplain.
The floodplain is not the issue. It's the quality of the soil. We know it's a floodplain, but if you build in the floodplain, you have challenges with that and you have to do things. And
But if
so
you knew up front that you were going to have to lift it up, it would seem to me that testing.
The lifting may not have nothing to do with it. We might be able to move soil from one side of the property to the other side and lift it up. It may not have anything to do with it, excuse me, right? The challenge is
Just
what's in the
seems late in
soil.
The process to be.
I don't think it's late in the
this
process at
discovery.
all. I think this is a very regular construction project. And anytime you build something, you've got to evaluate everything. And so even if you had identified the soil in the beginning, it still doesn't change the fact that you don't know if you need to move it or not. And you don't know that till you have the footprint of the building.
Did I see other hands? Yeah.
The request for qualification.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
For that property with the insurance policy, what does that look like? What is that property hopefully built for the insurance, right? With insurance company, raising on policy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the norm that we live in right now, all of our insurance in every building. And so we're a very large insurance carrier, so it'll get pulled in with the rest of our facilities. It's not a hindrance into opening a new building. Like we're going to build a new fire station. It's going to cost us money to insure it. It's just the cost of doing business, and we have to figure that out.
Okay, so back to this Amazon.
Yeah.
So once this whole building running, any direct revenue monies coming to the city?
I don't believe so.
No.
So now, tell me about this Goodwill stuff. I don't know anything about this. So
They donate money like to the arts and different organizations in Gilroy. They give grants.
And they work with business organizations supporting, sponsoring, so they can do stuff within the community.
Thank you.
Let me I'll give you an example with the Amazon building is it's a very large facility. It has, these batteries and things like that. So we don't really have all the equipment to do that. So as part of that development, they know they're going to have to contribute to our infrastructure to help that. And an example is we need more fire apparatus. And so when we're negotiating with them on this building, we're like, look, you're going to have a big impact on us. What can you provide? And they will contribute significant amount of money to provide for our public safety equipment that's required, not only for that building, but it can be used for other buildings as well. So that's kind of the stuff that happens when you negotiate with them.
Thank you.
Rachel?
Wait, are you saying that, batteries, we're gonna have to work on the batteries?
There'll be some batteries.
Or we're gonna end up like Mount Landing?
I don't know. I don't know what happened in Moss Landing.
But they're a big enough facility.
I mean, with the big fire.
You're right. But that, I don't believe that there's a conversation going on with the city, that their contribution to some new fire apparatus is not directly related to the batteries. It's directly related to the size of the building, right?
What's the data?
We don't have the fire equipment to reach out and get over, and that's what they're probably gonna do.
So PG&E has the additional resources to get power to that facility. I'm thinking in terms of something obviously experienced
Yeah.
here.
There are also negotiations with Silicon Valley Clean Energy, which is our electricity provider. And they're working with direct access in ways to provide the energy that they need and the backup that they need to keep their system running.
Thank you.
I wanted to go again, for bigger people community and you. Community, which is a here, that is very helpful. Community and they will be visible in churches, and other 501(c)(3s, which are in the community that are welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Well, okay, thank you very much for coming. Don't forget, if you don't, I'm gonna remind you one more time.
Great.
Well, I just- The big building that's going up on Monterey Street, is that Amazon or who is it big building? Oh, where
Murray and Forest. Murray, yeah.
Yeah.
Property, Joe knows about it, it was approved by the planning commission, never came to the council about 2 years ago. And it's built it's not a distribution center, and I can contest this, so it's gonna be a beautifully designed building. In the end, they put a lot of, they actually asked for a lot more public amenities than originally there, so I give kudos to the planning commission for doing that. You can see a lot of tree structure shades and all that kind of stuff. It'll be a good project when it's finished.
Well, it used to be when we had buildings going up. Future side, issues in the inside.
That's what I'm saying. And it's just what you see, go on the front side, I think it's, Yamani Drive or.
Yamane.
One of those inner forest street, that's why we're.
But as far as I know, there's not a tenant yet, correct? Does anybody know?
There is a big sign over there.
For the builder
For the
or for the
investor
future?
side.
For the builder or for the future tenant?
I don't think it's for the future.
Yeah, it's for a builder.
Suspect.
And unless they got someone
Well, it
recently,
says how big it is and what it could
Yeah.
be used for.
it's a spec build, right? So this, investors build hoping and knowing that they're gonna get a tenant, and that's what that is, I believe.
Whatever in those streets, next to the art center, what's the plan for those? No plan, let's move on. Get out of there.
Yeah, Mary, you're an expert on trees.
Okay, all right, this has been there is a plan, so let me tell you what happens when you have people who don't know what they're doing. Okay, so Bryce and I have never designed a pop-up park in our lives, okay? Nobody else wanted to take ownership of it, everybody said, we just want a pop-up park. So Bryce and I are in infinite wisdom, designed it, this is what you get, okay? So the trees were not planted on purpose because it's a pop-up park. Once we plant those trees, we're eventually gonna have to take them out. So we finally decided that we don't know what we're doing, and we sent it back to the Parks and Recreation Commission to start coming up with ideas of what they want to do with the pop-up park. So we're letting them do with it, because you've seen what we do. So the trees are there, we could plant them, but the concern is how long is that gonna be a pop-up park? That's a pretty valuable piece of land. It's in a nice corridor between, that downtown parking lot and downtown. And so until the overall vision of what that park could be, we just didn't want to put them in the ground.
I think it probably was really nice when they were.
Yeah.
First place there, but I think it's suggestions, maybe have public works to go over to the. Somewhere.
I know how do you say it?
Horticulturalist.
That's what I know a horticulturalist, and we'll take all the help we can get.
Get your shovel and go.
We're gonna do something. We're gonna do something.
The best we could do is to say we didn't know.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
One more in back.
Look about clean energy.
So PG&E is your transmission and distribution, and Silicon Valley Clean Energy is your generator. Work.
All right. Thank you. Reminder, Civic Center planning this Tuesday, 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Wheeler Auditorium. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it. Grab a donut and another coffee.